Welcome back. The legal and sporting fraternities across St. Lucia are in mourning as the well-known attorney Oswald Wilkinson Larcher has passed away. The 78-year-old from Grosley passed away at hospital on Tuesday, the 10th of November. Nisha Charles reports.
The death of well-known attorney and football enthusiast Oswald Wilkinson Larcher sent shockwaves across St. Lucia Tuesday evening. Larcher was not only an attorney, but the founding president of the Lancer Sports Club. Current President Villain Edwards says Larcher was a visionary and a pillar of the communities of Sans Souci, Vigie, Leclerc, and environs.
Under his presidency, our club became a household name in St. Lucia and featured in volleyball, football, cricket, track and field, darts, dominoes, and other initiatives at the national level. Undoubtedly, one of his greatest achievements was the staging of the Lancers Youth Sports Clinic, which assembled children at the then VG playing field every Saturday during school and every weekend during the summer vacation. This venture provided training, refreshments, and attire for thousands of Castries youth in 7 sporting disciplines with an average of at least 400 attendees each summer.
Larcher spent most of his life in service to others, particularly the youth. His work with both the Castries Football Council and the St. Lucia Football Association, where he also served as president, was legendary and second to none, having secured unprecedented sponsorship to assist with developmental programs and the staging of competitions through partnerships with the private sector. Also mourning his death is St. Lucia's Bar Association, who describes him as a caring and affable man. Former Attorney General Lorenzo Rudolph Francis was a partner with Larcher between 2000 and 2003.
Well, Wilkie was actually the first lawyer I worked with, and every lawyer in St. Lucia will remember him as being very humanitarian and very jovial. He actually put this spirit of law into law. Wilkie was charming, and it was a pleasure to watch Wilkie disarm and aggrieve the client. He had the natural charm that a client would be quarreling outside in the office. And when they walk into Wilkie's office, within 2 minutes, you would hear them laughing and smiling with Wilkie. And I mean, this is one of his strengths as a lawyer. Wilkie was always one of those persons who respected his clients. And despite him being an SLP and me being a UWP, we were both members of opposing parties, but we worked very, 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 very well together. And good thing about Wilkie is Wilkie was one of those persons who would engage you in a very objective discussion on any national issue which would actually impact the country as a whole. He cared for St. Lucia.
Attorney at law Stanley Felix also shared his fondest memories of Larcher.
I first met Wilkie back in 1991, I believe. And then in 1992, he became the SLP's candidate for Castries Northeast before it was realigned to what is currently is Castries Central. He ran the 1992 elections for the Labour Party. Of course, he was not victorious, but I think, in a sense, Wilkie was one of those persons who sort of whet my appetite for the politics.
Daddy Larcher, as he was known to children and adults alike, was the listening ear and lifeline for many successful athletes, administrators, and people in general. He lived and breathed humanitarian service, and according to those who knew him, his personal sacrifices in attaining goals and solving problems were nothing short of phenomenal. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
The St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, SLASPA, has received confirmation that an employee at its southern port has tested positive for COVID-19 and is now receiving medical attention. As a precautionary measure and in keeping with the authorities as well as national COVID-19 response, all co-workers who were in direct physical contact are being tested and have thus been asked to self-quarantine over the next 14 days. All common areas as well as sections that may have been occupied by the employee have been deep cleaned and sanitized. Earlier this month, SLASPA fully activated its COVID-19 Seaports Management Plan, which included the implementation of personal effects appointment system at the Castries Seaport in the first instance. After having evaluated the successful implementation of the initiative, the authority will advance the rollout of the personal effects appointment system at Port Vieux-Fort to take effect on Friday, the 13th of November. All people clearing personal effects items at Port Vieux-Fort will be required to call 285-1091 or 285-1175 Monday to Friday between the hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to schedule an appointment. In other news, the island's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, has revealed that people placed in home quarantine are currently proving a challenge. This as they continue to refuse to adhere to the protocols and remain indoors. Dr. Belmar-George said it is impossible to keep an eagle eye on the 700+ individuals currently being observed in quarantine, and so she implored them and their peers to stick to the rules for the sake of curbing the spread of COVID-19.
The rapidly rising numbers of cases of COVID-19 is undoubtedly one of the key headaches for the Ministry of Health. However, another issue relating to the disease is quickly becoming a thorn in their side as well, and that is the issue of persons who have been asked to remain in quarantine at home, failing to adhere to the rules of the Act. During a press conference on Wednesday, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George highlighted the problem.
I have been indicating what the risk of transmission for COVID-19 is in country. And I indicated our four main risks. One is the high risk in the international arena, the risk by illegal entry in the border, also the breaches to home quarantine, and that is both for persons coming in who are granted home quarantine and persons who are given home quarantine based on their status through contact tracing. We continue to get persons who have been put in isolation at home, who breach this and don't stay where they're supposed. They put themselves, they put their family, they put the communities at risk, and this is a real risk.
Dr. Belmar-George pleaded with the masses to lend them a hand by adhering to the set protocols, as it is a task too big for them to fight alone.
At this point, we are monitoring over 700 people. So it's difficult for us to keep 700 people within an institution, and those numbers will continue to grow. So we continue to work at the level of the communities, we continue to advocate, and we need the cooperation, we need the support of everyone who knows persons in quarantine to ask them to adhere. As well, if you know someone is in quarantine, it's not the time to visit them. And we see that happening at the level of the community. We even had someone in quarantine hosting a party, and persons came. So these are some of the irresponsible behaviors leading to the high reproductive rate we are seeing within the second wave. These are some of the things that we are noting when we are doing the contact tracing, where persons' risk of transmission is much higher as compared to our first wave when we were managing the disease because of the risky behavior displayed.
To date, the island has recorded 2 COVID-related deaths. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Rochelle Gonzalez.
The Civil Service Association, CSA, has expressed astonishment at what it feels is the trivialization of the issues at the respiratory hospital by Health Minister Mary Isaac. Minister Isaac, when asked about the situation with mold and mildew, indicated that it will be ameliorated when all infrastructural upgrades are complete, and that for now the conditions have to be tolerated. CSA General Secretary Claude Paul says mold and air quality issues at a respiratory hospital cannot be put on the back burner.
The statement is an unfortunate one, given that we were speaking about a health facility where COVID patients are housed, and that a respiratory disease is being treated in an environment where there's a spot or two of mold. It is important because it can affect the life of the patients who are there.
Let's revisit the comments by Health Minister Mary Isaac.
But we do have these conditions there right now, and until we have finished the renovations, we expect, that, people will have to put up with some conditions that are not necessarily, up to standard.
Meanwhile, the executive director of the respiratory hospital has issued an apology for the less than ideal conditions that some patients have had to endure.
The video, which surfaced on Monday, November 9th, highlighted a section of the respiratory hospital where the individual taking the footage was placed. Flooded floors along with moldy ceilings were showcased, sparking outrage and concern among the population as to the state of the island's lone respiratory hospital. While the executive director of the respiratory hospital, Nancy Francis, appreciates the heightened awareness by the public of the COVID-19 pandemic on island, she says it is unfortunate that patients had such a negative experience at the hospital.
We are working assiduously to address the infrastructural upgrades at the respiratory hospital, which include complete renovation of approximately 50 beds and, in some instances, the installation of individual bathroom facilities to meet WHO standards for COVID-19 patients. Other works include painting, installation of ventilation system, and an upgrade of the sewer and wastewater systems.
The executive director says that while the hospital was busy ensuring that the infrastructural works were complete, there was an increase of COVID-19 patients in country, which severely disrupted the project, resulting in incomplete works in some areas.
We had to quickly admit patients at the hospital while simultaneously continuing with the said infrastructural works in a safe and conducive manner for all concerned. This was further exacerbated by the heavy rainfall over the last 2 weeks. The heavy rains resulted in leaks, water seepage, and other wet conditions at the respiratory hospital. Our maintenance and technical teams have done their best to manage the leaks and water seepage. However, dry weather is needed for this to be adequately addressed.
Francis welcomes the concerns and feedback from the general public. However, she urges everyone to channel their much appreciated concerns and recommendations to the hospital by calling the Respiratory Hospital Information Desk at 458-6526 or email respiratoryh@govt.lc. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Stay with us. Still to come, the president of the Principals Association gives her view on suggestions to repeat the school year. The Chamber of Commerce says neither the economy nor the nation's health can become casualties of COVID-19. And Dr. Ernest Hilaire cries out on behalf of tourism workers.